Good evening. Welcome to the March 23rd, 2021 meeting of the Pequannock Township Council. Ms. Marsh?
In accordance with the requirements of New Jersey's Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this meeting was included in the annual meeting notice, which was filed in the office of the Township Clerk, posted on the bulletin board of the municipal building, published as a legal notice in Suburban Trends newspaper, and distributed to all persons requesting notice in accordance with Township policy. Information on remote access to the meeting was sent via email to the Suburban Trends, Daily Record, and Record newspapers, and posted on the bulletin board, front door, and accessible entrance of the municipal building and on the Township website.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a prayer and a moment of thanks for individuals serving our nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Most gracious Providence, we ask that you bless this governing body with an abundance of wisdom and understanding, so that every deliberation will result in actions which will promote the common good and the general welfare for all the people of Pequannock Township. Amen.
Amen. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mrs. Florence Lynch?
Here.
Mr. Hurd?
Here.
Mr. Cole?
Here.
Mr. Phelan is absent. Mayor Russell?
Here. For anyone who hasn't participated in one of our remote meetings, I'm going to ask Mr. Brewer to review the format of the meeting. Mr. Brewer?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. As you know, this meeting is being held remotely due to COVID restrictions and corresponding concerns. The agenda, which was posted online, includes several places for public participation. So at that point, if you wish to participate, we ask that you raise your hand. Additionally, should the mayor and council welcome any comment at any time, the same procedure would follow if open to the public for public comment. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the 2021 municipal budget presentation. Mr. Brewer?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, members of council, and public. With me this evening, virtually, are Valerie Dolan from the Township's auditors, Nisavachi and Company. She's a partner with the firm, and she's our assigned partner, as well as Julie Kuplik, who is the Township's chief financial officer. It goes without saying that the budget wouldn't be possible without all of the participation of not only Ms. Dolan and Julie really leading the charge, but also the department heads and all the staff that are involved. With that, I'm going to share my screen. Members of council, can you see the presentation?
Yes, I can.
I can. Okay, great. Thank you. So, as I mentioned, there are a number of people involved in the budget process, which really initiates in September of the prior year. Julie, the chief financial officer, never stops ever throughout the year, but the majority of us begin in September with the issuance of memoranda to staff, boards, and committee and commissions, and we ask for everybody to begin preparing and submitting their budget requests. As required by the optional municipal charter law, we are required to hold a hearing that is public, where the department heads and associated staff make presentations regarding their budget requests and provide more background to what they're looking for so that they can be evaluated fairly. In January, the budget is disseminated with appropriations only to the council. As soon as we have revenues, we look to marry the revenues with the appropriations and fill out the capital requests. And then we proceed through February and March with meetings with the governing body, public meetings, to discuss, the various requests, what the council's policy objectives are in terms of projects, as well as any potential costs and other items. And then we move forward with budget introduction and approval, which may happen this evening. And then within a time period thereafter, a public hearing is scheduled and held. And if the council sees fit, the budget is adopted and implemented. Should we need an additional meeting, that schedule is articulated on the slide before you, with public hearing and potential adoption scheduled for the 27th should the council introduce the budget this evening. May 12th, we have an additional meeting should it become necessary. And if we were to adopt on May 12th, we would still be within the prescribed timeline established by the Division of Local Government Services. Some highlights on the budget. Total current fund general appropriations are $20,228,056. The current budget includes a proposed increase of 0.01 or 1 cent per $100 of assessed value on the rate. We have an open space, recreation, farmland, and historic preservation trust fund. That has a tax of 0.6 per $100 of assessed value. So the council and everyone are aware the trust fund had an unencumbered balance of just over $400,000 at the end of last year. And with the rate and valuation of the community as it is, we anticipate $141,000+ of revenue to be brought in 2021. Again, just for some color commentary behind that, this is money used for open space projects, historic preservation projects. Traditionally, it's seed money to use to leverage grants, often at 3-to-1 or better ratios. Overall, the municipal tax increase as proposed, including the library, is approximately 1.99%. I say approximately because there's typically a lot of decimal points that happen after the hundreds. And when the rate is ultimately sent to the county, you can't round down because then you collect too little money. So they round up. And if they have to round up, it gets put onto the municipal portion. So I always include that as a caveat. Some changes in expense by category. Again, hitting some high-end stuff. Salaries and wages for the 2021 budget include a 2.13% increase. Other expenses, that's really the departmental operational budgets, paper clips, projects, all those things, 1.30%. Health insurance, which prior to 2020, we were seeing 5-8% plus increases. We have an increase of 1.47%, so we've taken proactive action to arrest that runaway freight train. Pensions, 5.53%. Debt service is going to jump out the page and kind of hit you at a big percentage of 38.64. The overwhelming majority of that is offset by a revenue in the current funds from the money we get back from FEMA for the reimbursements for those home elevation projects. So the actual cost to the taxpayer, I believe, is only going up $5,000 from last year to this year. And with respect to the deferred charges, once again, in the 2021 budget, we're including $266,000 to retire what is in essence debt to ourselves. Revenues. I don't think I need to say it's been an interesting year. Regardless of your business, regardless of your experience, it's been a challenge dealing with COVID. We did have a strong tax collection rate for 2020, so that was helpful. And with respect to miscellaneous revenues, if anybody remembers back to the presentation that was made in April, Julie had very little faith in my prognostication, but I forecast that $360,000 of miscellaneous revenue. That's revenue that comes in outside of taxation. So fees, permits, interest on investments, licenses, things like that. Uniform construction code, court revenues. I projected that we may be in jeopardy of losing $360,000 of revenue. Luckily, and again, beneficially because of how effective everybody was and the stability of our community, we ultimately only came up $97,834 short of miscellaneous revenues. Because there's an interesting rule in municipal budgeting that you can never anticipate more revenue in a year than you realized in the prior year. That became a challenge in 2021 because, as we all know, revenues were unusually down, or at least what we hope unusually down. So the Division of Local Government Services, which is a state division of the Department of Community Affairs, came out with guidance that allowed municipalities to use a 3-year average of prior revenues in order to anticipate revenues in 2021. We did adopt a resolution, or the council, adopted a resolution authorizing the use of 3-year average revenues. However, as the council is aware through going over these in some detail, they're not inappropriately being used. We're not going to anticipate a huge amount of money when we know we're not actually going to experience that. That would just create a problem for us moving forward. And one of the themes throughout the budget process was, let's make decisions today that don't hurt us tomorrow. So that was done in a responsible manner and is reflected appropriately in the corresponding documents. Fund balance. Fund balance or owner equity, if you're in GAAP accounting, is the money left over at the end of the year. To the right of the slide, you will see a chart that goes in 2011. We had 489,000, and I apologize because there's a picture of us, right? But now we have 2.655 million, so we're going in the right direction. We are using a little bit more than we would typically use in the municipal budget this year, but that's because we withheld some money and understand we may have some loss of revenue from property tax appeals and other things. So we're just using that as a bridge, a little bit of a bridge. But Ms. Dolan can provide her opinion at the conclusion of this, whether she thinks it's inappropriate or not. Primary impacts on fund balance, as mentioned in an earlier slide, we had a deficit of revenue collection. So that's less money to lapse that we were anticipating. However, we did have $776,000 of reserve appropriations from 2019's budget move forward. But it really relates to a conservative approach to budgeting and having a strong tax collection rate. So again, the forethought of everyone involved in the budgeting process in 2020, as well as the stability of our community. Big discussion with the council as we move forward in this year's budget process was our tax rate and where our tax dollar goes. So there's a graphic on the slide, and I actually had a lot of fun talking to staff and residents because I would say, you know, Price is Right rules, closest without going over. How much of each dollar do you believe the Township of Pequannock retains for municipal operations? And the slide breaks it down by each taxing entity, and rounding up, we get 22 cents on the dollar. So the majority of your tax dollar, or 88 cents, goes to the Board of Education, the county, and the county open space tax. So it's a fun fact to know that, you know, we all talk about the 2% cap, and if we have a 2% or slightly under, it equates to a certain, you know, increase in the average assessed home, which I'll get to shortly. But a 2% rate, and 2% increase on 22 cents of a dollar is very different than a 2% increase on a greater amount. And that's one of the challenges when describing to people, you know, my taxes went up X $100. How can you say you only increased to 2%? Well, our piece of the pie is only just over 1/5. Capital improvements. One of the things the Township of Pequannock is very proud of itself with respect to is that we have a fully funded or pay-as-you-go capital program for general capital. So this includes $1.497 million in projects, the majority of which is being funded through the tax levy in the 2021 budget, the balance from capital improvement fund and existing reserves that we have populated. Below the other bullets on the slide, you have some highlights. You know, we're looking to do $440,000 of road resurfacing programs this year. That does not include the additional money that we've received through grants from the Department of Transportation. So actually it'll end up being more, but that's just using the general capital program. We have $150,000 reserved to increase the amount that's already in the savings account for fire apparatus, which we know we're out over a certain period of time. We're continuing the sidewalk improvement program. We're getting ready to do Ramapo Road sidewalks. So we'll move forward with the sidewalk evaluation program that the engineering department is going to do and prioritize the sidewalks that need to be addressed with use of that money. And there's $30,000 in this year's budget, again, as an amount to save towards the acquisition of a future ambulance. These are just some examples. You know, obviously they don't add up to $1.497 million. The balance of that is in the budget documents that are posted on the website and the legal budget document. The water utility. The water utility budget overall increased 20.37%. My goodness, that seems like a large number. Well, the principal driver of that is the increase in the rate by the city of Newark, as well as the fact that we had a pretty dry year last year. So when you have a dry year, you sell a lot more water. But when we do purchase some of our water from the city of Newark, we have to pay for that water. So the revenues that we realized supported the increase in the utility and the size of the utility, and the budget is in balance. Salary and wages going up just over 3%. Other expenses, again, going up that large amount because of the city of Newark's fee. Council also discussed the potential need for treatment for certain chemicals in the water, and an earmark is included in this budget toward those things, as well as other capital projects.
Excuse me, Adam, can I ask a favor?
Sure.
For some reason, I lost the picture. I can only hear you, so can I try to reconnect real quick?
Sure. I apologize, everybody. We're going to jump off the screen share. Councilman, if you want to jump off and jump back on.
Okay, so I'm back in, I guess. I don't know what.
Okay. let me try sharing the screen again.
Okay.
All right. I was going to start from the beginning just because it would be fun to see if I could say the same stuff all over again, but I won't torture everybody.
No, I was able to hear you.
The sewer utility has an overall decrease of 4.04%. Again, that's a curiosity. That really has to do with the fact that we got a little bit less of a refund from Two Bridges Sewerage Authority, which is where we send our effluent to be treated. And what we typically do with greater refunds from them is, rather than use them for operations, we retire some of the deferred charges that exist within the sewer utility. So we received a little bit less of a one-time revenue, and we use it a little bit less to address some of those ongoing debt issues. Salary and wages just over 3%. Other expenses just under 6%. And we do have a cash funding capital improvement of $10,000. Solid waste utility, as the council and many members of the public are aware, we did have an increase in the rate in 2021, which was precipitated by new 5-year collection contracts for garbage, recycling, and vegetative waste. The council did take proactive action to mitigate the increase in those costs by changing our philosophy from single stream to dual stream, which saved roughly $500,000 over the course of the lifespan of those contracts. So we did see an overall increase in the utility budget of about 11.5%. Salary and wages in the utility are up just over 4%. Other expenses, excluding health insurance, just over 11%, and $79,000 of capital improvements. Recreation utility is an interesting thing. Nothing really, no aspect of municipal operations was more greatly impacted than recreation, and not just in the township of Pequannock. Because of the executive orders and restrictions, a lot of programs just didn't happen, which in many cases is okay. But you know, on the one hand, we did have to cancel a number of programs, but on another hand, as has been mentioned in prior meetings, I'm proud of our ability to have offered PV Park for the entire season as soon as we were allowed to. I'm proud of the fact that we had the hoedown. I'm proud of the fact that we had our camps when many of our neighboring communities did not. And not only did we have these activities, but they were done safely and responsibly and without the transmission of the disease. So there was a concerted effort on everyone's part to have everything that we could, and we did a good job with that. That said, when you have a recreation utility, the way the budget is structured, when you don't have activities, you don't realize revenues, and that creates a shrinking balloon. In an effort to move in a different philosophical direction, council authorized the establishment of a recreation trust fund. So moving forward, we will work to shift costs away from the recreation utility into the recreation trust fund. Doesn't create an opportunity to spend money willy-nilly. It's really an accounting exercise to remove handcuffs, in my opinion, and allow greater flexibility in dealing with situations like this, as well as creating new programs. So the recreation utility did shrink in order to deal with those things. It does need to continue to operate based upon the presence of certain debt, and it will keep all those programs that we announced and we're collecting money for, and certain other programs to remain afloat until that debt can be retired and we can ultimately move forward with the recreation trust. That's the end of the slide presentation. Unless there are any specific questions from council, I just want to once again thank everybody on the township staff, thank the council. We've moved forward with a challenging process and come up with a budget that, in my opinion, is responsible, doesn't create major issues moving forward, because you know you can do things to cut things drastically, but expenses, unless you eliminate programs, don't go away. So you know we're moving forward with a modest increase, which does have a corresponding impact on the average assessed home of $41.99 for the year, or $3.50 a month. So the average assessed home in the township of Pequannock in 2021 is $377,826, excuse me. And the proposed increase in the budget as it was just presented equates to just under $42 a year for the average assessed home. So if there's any questions from council, I'd be happy to entertain them. I don't know if Valerie wants to make her annual comments.
Sure, I can jump on, do a quick comment. Yes, we've been involved obviously from the start. Back in September, I think when we started this process, we reached out and spoke so that as you're making these budget decisions that you made, this is actually a very sound budget. This is a critical time for most municipalities. And so when we see good fiscal responsibility occurring on multiple years, towns are able to bridge the gap for the first time ever having to deal with a pandemic, and be able to sustain themselves. Yeah, I agree with Adam. There's a little bit more fund balance. And when you start using more of your fund balance, you take me a little bit out of my comfort zone, but you're not far enough that I would say that you're too far on the other end. I would be reeling you in if I did feel that way, be suggesting. But no, I think that where you are is sustainable, because when you did your 3-year average for a lot of the revenues that fell short, you were extremely conservative. So the reality is you stayed conservative on the 21 estimated revenues, which hopefully means that that's the rebound that you will see to help replenish the revenues in your fund balance that you've taken. This budget addresses many issues, and with rising pension costs, which a lot of towns it's definitely a good budget, and the utilities are standing on their own. I think when we all approached the recreation budget, we all approached it very cautiously, not knowing how it would land and what revenues would be. And the shrinking of that budget is covering the thoughts of that revenue. So I feel it's a great budget, and keep up the good fiscal responsibility for the township.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to just say thanks, Valerie. I do appreciate your outside comments. It's nice to know that we are doing the right thing. Julie, I see all your hard work. I really do appreciate it. And Adam, I think that's, in my opinion, that was the first time that somebody really articulated what we go through as far as budget season. So this way the residents of Pequannock could really understand. I think that was a very good explanation, and hopefully the residents understand how much we as council, we were working to get down to that 2%, above, below, somewhere in there, but I appreciate what you did there. So thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for everybody's work. I just have one quick question. While we were talking about the sewer, whatever happened when they were doing the sewer master plan and we had to cap some things? The guy said we were going to make extra money from the sewer authority because we were leaking water. Do you remember that whole thing?
Yes, I&I.
Yeah.
So we significantly restricted the amount of I&I. So for the general public, inflow and infiltration is water seeping into the sanitary sewer system. Anything you flush has to be treated by the Two Bridges Sewage Authority, and anything that's treated costs money. So the restriction of the I&I, which did occur and has continued, decreases what we would have to pay for that is not actually sewage. The way the Two Bridges Sewage Authority works is they essentially provide you with an estimate based upon prior year's flows and give you a bill based upon that. If you have more for some reason, you have to pay more, or they take more. If you have less, they give you a refund. So the amount or the rebate that comes back from Two Bridges corresponds to us getting money owed back to us rather than exceeding what our estimate was.
Right. That was a good job on that.
Yeah. I thought
And
the
thank
slide
you.
show was great.
Yeah, it was great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Julie.
Are there any other questions or comments from council?
No, just wanted to thank everyone for their hard work.
Thank you. And many hands make light work. So again, it really is a group effort.
It was good. It was easy to follow. It was actually enjoyable.
Yeah.
We're converting another accountant over here.
It was
Well, make no
enjoyable for
mistake,
us, 'cause we
Mrs.
didn't have to
Russell
do
is
the
an
hard work.
actuary.
This time,
Government budget is a whole different animal, so.
yeah, fun. Okay, so we'll move on. At this time, if there are any reports or comments from any of the volunteers serving our community, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized.
Mayor, there are no hands raised.
The next item on the agenda is public comments. This public comment period will be limited to a total of 30 minutes. An additional period for public comments is reserved later in the meeting. Individuals are requested to limit their questions and comments to 3 minutes. If anyone wishes to address the council, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized and provide your name and address for the record.
Mayor, there are no hands raised.
Ms. Marsh, have any written comments been submitted?
There are none.
There being no additional public comments, we will continue. The next item on our agenda is the manager's report. Mr. Brewer, do you need to take a breath of fresh air?
This guy again?
Off we go again. No more PowerPoint this time, though. Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Within my written report, obviously there was a presentation on the municipal budget that's taken place. This evening, we have a public hearing on an ordinance to prohibit urination and defecation and public nudity. As we discussed previously, that pertains to an enforcement gap that the police department recommended be closed with a local ordinance. Simply, it's either a conversation or a 2C criminal offense to deal with some of the things that they've encountered, and this will enhance their ability to address concerns of the residents. Under the discussion items, we do have an ordinance addressing the new state laws pertaining to cannabis legalization and corresponding zoning issues, as well as council meeting format, but I'll reserve any further comment to those discussion items. Unless there's any questions, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is the public hearing on ordinance number 2021-04. Ms. Marsh?
Ordinance number 2021-04 is an ordinance to amend Chapter 123 of the Code of the Township of Pequannock and prohibit public urination and defecation and public nudity.
Are there any comments from the council?
Nope, we're good.
Good.
Nope.
Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 If anyone in the audience has questions or comments on this ordinance, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized and identify yourself for the record.
There are no hands raised, Mayor.
Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that.
Go
A
ahead, Dave.
second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there a motion to adopt this ordinance?
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 2021-04.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Florence Lynch,
Yes.
Mr. Hurd,
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Mayor Russell.
Yes. There are no ordinances scheduled for introduction at this time. The next item is resolutions. Ms. Marsh.
So we've been asked to take a separate vote on the introduction of the budget. So Resolution R 2021-94 is approving introduction of the 2021 municipal budget. And I should mention that the public hearing on the budget will be scheduled for April 27th at 7 p.m.
Are there any comments on this resolution from the council?
No.
Is there a motion to adopt this resolution?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2021-94.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
that.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Florence Lynch,
Yes.
Mr. Hurd,
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Mayor Russell.
Yes. Ms. Marsh, will you read the rest of the resolutions, please?
Remaining resolutions for the evening, beginning with Resolution R 2021-95, adopting an extended temporary budget for 2021. That's the second one. R 2021-96, confirming the sale of public property no longer needed for public use located at 90 Village Road, Block 2306, Lot 20 in the Township of Pequannock. R 2021-97, urging the immediate repeal of Senate Bill number 3454, which is Public Law 2021, Chapter 25. R 2021-98, awarding a contract for the concession operator for the Pequannock Valley Park Lake Concession Stand to Chef Express LLC for the total contribution amount of $1,501 in accordance with the request for quotations. 2021-99, authorizing tax office refunds, overpayments, or cancellations. 2021-100, authorizing utility office refunds, overpayments, or cancellations. 2021-101, authorizing release of deposits for construction in a township right-of-way. And R 2021-102, approving payment of the itemized claims as set forth on the March 18th, 2021 bill list and 2016 FEMA elevation escrow list.
Are there any comments on these resolutions from council?
Just a quick question, Adam. R 2021-96. So do we actually sell this property?
This is the next step in the process. We discussed it and direction was provided in closed session. This memorializes that direction, as well as I will note that we have a returned copy of the executed contract from the contract purchaser.
Okay.
So we will move forward toward a closing, which is currently scheduled for May.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy to see that we got someone for the snack stand at PV Park. I think it's definitely a value and something that the people that go to PV Park anticipate that they can get something to eat while they're there. So great to see.
Yeah. And the individual has experience serving in an exact same capacity in a neighboring municipality. So we're optimistic.
That's awesome.
Great.
Anything else?
No.
Is there a motion to adopt these resolutions?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolutions R 2021-95 through R 2021-102.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Florence Lynch,
Yes.
Mr. Hurd,
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
Yes,
Mayor Russell.
Yes. The next item on the agenda, items for discussion. Adam, you want to take this away?
Yes, ma'am. And I was just going to say, if Julie wanted to depart, unless there was objection, have a good night, Julie. But Julie and Val took the opportunity to.
Bye, Julie. Bye, Val.
lot of late nights and weekends. So I appreciate her support, and I'm glad she got at it. This evening we have scheduled for discussion an ordinance that amends Township Code and provides for some controls associated with the legalization of cannabis. With the recent legislative action taken by the state of New Jersey, it created in what I'll describe as an interesting conundrum for municipalities. For those familiar with land use, unless something is explicitly permitted, it is prohibited. What happened with this law is it took almost an opposite effect and has said that everything is permitted unless it is prohibited. The other interesting dynamic to this is you have, as a governing body, a prescribed time period, which concludes on August 22nd, to act. And if you don't act in that time frame, that permission for all activities will persist for a period of 5 years. At the conclusion of 5 years, the council can take action to restrict or control certain activities, but anything that took place within that 5 years would be grandfathered. So the position that the League of Municipalities has taken and the recommendation that's being provided to the council tonight is, again, getting to the conclusion before we get to the details, the most conservative approach is to limit all aspects of sale, whether it be retail or wholesale, distribution, manufacturing. And that way, if the council decides in a month or 6 months or a year that they would like to permit something, they can make that decision. But the council's hand is not forced into allowing it because you've taken a conservative approach. I'm married to a person that works in public education, and I'm familiar with the saying that teachers never smile until election day. You don't want to start off kind because then you've lost the war with the students. I also know a lot of people that are car nuts that say you never buy the first model of a car, first model year. You want to see let it work out the kinks first. Through my conversations with Bob, colleagues, there are a lot of aspects of this that remain to be determined. And one of the concerns I have about certain allowances is we don't know how it's all going to shake out. Getting into a little bit more of the detail, what the council is empowered to regulate is cultivation, manufacturing, wholesale and retail sale of cannabis and cannabis-containing products. The Township Council does have the ability to license distribution, but does not have the ability to delivery, to license deliveries, but does not have the power to prohibit deliveries in the Township of Pequannock. So very similar to how limousines are currently licensed in the Township of Pequannock would be how delivery services associated with cannabis would be treated. So, again, there are those licenses that are permitted, and I'll stop talking because I've done a lot of that tonight. But the recommendation again from the League of Municipalities is to approach this with caution, and approaching it in this manner for anybody that is in favor of these activities doesn't eliminate the ability to do it. It just gives the council the ability to make that decision in the future and doesn't automatically provide approval.
I guess, Bob, I have one question. If we do the ordinance, is it going to have teeth? Because we all know that there are greenhouses that grow vegetation in Pequannock.
Mhm.
If one of them got a license to grow marijuana, would we be able to stop them with this ordinance, being that it's pretty much growing vegetation? I could see maybe a town that doesn't have a greenhouse having a lot of teeth, but a town that has several greenhouses that grow vegetation, would we have teeth to stop it?
Yeah. Under state law, the way the legislature has crafted it, we in fact would. Now, I can't say that there's not going to be a challenge to that at the state level, but they'd have to challenge the state law. The state law gives us the ability to prohibit that, even on existing farms and in existing greenhouses. So the question's a good one, Dave, because there is right to farm, and we've learned over the years that that limits a lot of our regulatory powers. But as of right now, the state has not given priority to the right to farm over this municipal ability to make that decision. So I think as Adam suggested, that one of the possibilities is if one of the greenhouses wants to change over to that, they can still come to us. We would still have the ability to make changes to this over the next 5 years, but we would have the ability to do that better investigating and better understanding the limitations that we might want to put on it. So I don't think we have to look at it as we shouldn't look at it as a permanent decision not to go forward with it, but rather as a cautious decision while we await what's going to be out there in terms of changes and what we can learn about this.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say in follow up to Dave is the same thing. Like, I like, the conservative approach and to see what happens. But, in the future, if a greenhouse was to come forward and want to do it, you don't want that to possibly hurt either, So that's why I just want to make sure we understand what we can and can't do.
Yeah. So I think we can say that as we move forward with it, that we're not making a decision. We're not making a decision not to allow this for the next 5 years. We're making a decision to give ourselves an option to see how this plays out across the state and around here, and also to have a conversation with somebody that really had an interest in doing this about what kind of restrictions we'd want to put on it. Because we are empowered under the legislation to put a lot of restrictions and conditions on it. Our problem right now sitting here is I don't think we all know what the appropriate restrictions and conditions would be. We haven't learned that yet.
Gives us flexibility.
Yes, it does.
I think it's nice to hold off and wait and see what happens others, because we can't ask the questions or place the restrictions that we don't know. We don't even know what questions we need to ask yet. So just by waiting, so I think it's a great idea to say, let's just wait and see how it pans out. And then we'll go, when we do decide, if we do decide to go into it, we're going in with full knowledge, not
Right.
just like, yep, we're in. And I think it's better for us and a greenhouse that we won't be putting maybe too many restrictions. Maybe people will be like, oh, we did this, but that didn't work. We did this and it worked better for them. It worked better for us. So it's really just giving us a little more time to learn, because this is new for everybody. And I think
Yeah.
the more we learn, the more effective we could be across the board.
Right. Now, Bob, there are currently 5 growers in New Jersey. Am I correct by saying that? Weren't there licenses to grow issued?
I believe they were, and those probably get to continue. I would.
Okay.
So I've got a question, just for clarification. If we don't make a decision by April, we lose the ability to make that decision by August. If we don't make that decision by August, we lose the ability to make that decision for 5 years.
Correct. The decision is made for us that all the uses are then legal.
So
And if you don't, forgive the interruption, but I just want to be clear. It's almost like you lose the ability to make the decision forever, because anything that's acted upon within that first 5 years cannot be removed.
Grandfathered in.
Yeah.
that sounds like bullying to me. So I've got somebody that is pushing a law down our throats that we don't understand. Nobody understands the implications. And then they're also saying that you must make a decision by such and such a date, or else game over. Anybody can do whatever they want. So they're forcing us into making a decision to basically not allow anything until further notice, and then we can start opening up. I don't like being in that position.
Yeah, understood. But that is the position. That is the position we're in.
That is ridiculous.
Mhm.
And that's my 2 cents.
It gives us the flexibility, I think.
Yeah.
We're not saying that if, one of the greenhouses does get a license to grow, that it's no.
Right. We don't want to stop it.
Right.
No, but I don't want to be
We're
forced
going to
to
have
make
the
a
ability
decision.
to talk about it with them. And
Right. But I don't want to be, right now I'm forced to make a decision to say nothing is allowed in Pequannock without understanding what the ramifications are.
well, I'll be
Forced
honest
into
with you.
making that decision.
I don't want, I'm okay if a greenhouse wants to grow it, but I am not okay with having a shop in the center of town selling it. So if us passing this ordinance protects us from that, I'm all for it. I don't want people coming in from all different towns because Pequannock has a store that sells the legalized marijuana. So,
That's kind of inevitable. I mean, I think we need to have those long-term conversations, but right now we're having a conversation on what we have to do instead of having conversations of what we can do and whatnot.
Right.
So my 2 cents, and that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Yeah, while the 21st Amendment is one of my favorite amendments to the United States Constitution, I don't know if you wanted to be the first one to have a bar after the enactment of the 21st Amendment. Perhaps you wanted to see others, because if you were the first, you were going to become real popular. So again, the idea that you preserve your right to make decisions moving forward, and let's learn a little bit, because, as Councilman Cole pointed out, he's in favor of certain things. Well, yes, philosophically that make perfect sense, but we don't know what impacts others are going to see as a result of that. In a prior municipality that I served, there was a fragrance manufacturer. You wouldn't think that was problematic until you lived in the neighborhood. So you never know what the unintended consequences may be. And by taking an approach to preserve the council's decision-making power, you don't authorize something inadvertently that you didn't understand.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm in favor of moving the ordinance forward.
Yeah, I think I am too.
I am definitely in favor of moving the ordinance forward.
Okay, so we'll prepare it as drafted for consideration of introduction at the first meeting in April.
Sounds good. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. The next item scheduled for discussion, meeting format. As I get to discuss at the outset of the meeting that this meeting is being held via Zoom. And you know that because you're here. We have had discussions on this subject, I guess 3 or 4 times since the pandemic began. And through conversations, the desire was expressed to have the discussion about this again. As previously reported, we are working through Zoom and doing things effectively. We have also taken steps to safeguard the public meeting room with plexiglass, both for the members of council as well as the public. We have a capacity of approximately 36 at this point, though the executive order does not provide a capacity for governing body meetings. They are exempt. For other operations, there's a capacity of that number. So, I just wanted to bring that up, share that information with the council, and seek whatever your direction is moving forward in terms of in-person versus virtual meetings.
I'm okay with meeting in person.
Let's
I'm
get
ready.
together.
I'm ready.
I'm ready to meet in person.
Yeah.
There was, I had a conversation with Councilman Phelan today, and I know it's not a big deal, but it may be a big deal to some of you. But Rich and I are in the agreement that, jacket and tie and really doesn't need to be worn. We've done this without the tie and jacket, the Zoom. If there is a presentation and if there is a need for us to be dressed, we both agree that we will be dressed. But if it's a council meeting with nothing really going on other than this, a golf shirt and a pair of trousers or slacks is more than reasonable for us.
Dave, I hate to say it, but Kyle and I were talking about full formal wear going forward. Okay. I agree with you, Dave.
You look good in a bow tie.
I'm good with that. When can we start? Is it going to be April 13th or?
Our first meeting in April, can we do that?
You can.
Meet in public?
Meet in public.
Show our faces.
Yeah, right.
What are the restrictions for us when we meet in public? I mean, are masks required the whole time we're there? Can we take the mask off when we're speaking?
If we're going to move forward with a plan to meet in public on April 13th, I'd like to solicit some advice from the township's health officer in those matters, and then we can operate accordingly. So I don't think we need to make those decisions unless the council wants to pursue them theoretically now. I think we can, just operate under the guidance of the health professionals and make sure we maintain a safe operational environment.
So you'll let us know prior to the meeting then what we can and
Correct.
can't do. Okay.
I'll provide the recommendations. I try not to tell council what they can and can't do. It gets me unemployed.
Are we still going to have the ability for the public to not come in, but to be able to see, be involved in the meeting via Zoom or whatever? Or
doing a hybrid approach presents certain challenges.
okay.
The biggest issue is, if you watch some other public entities, if you're in a public meeting and you're sitting there, I'm looking at a computer, but I'm looking at a person, but I'm looking at a computer. And then if somebody in the public, how does somebody at home see the person standing at the podium? So that does create certain challenges. My recommendation would typically be do one or the other.
Okay.
Even if you were to live stream it and have a camera, then you have to have people able to call in or somehow participate remotely. It just creates certain operational challenges to managing the meeting.
Yeah, I think they can still send their questions to Carol, correct?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
It's not correct. Well, anybody can send questions. The council can certainly decide that they would like to continue that as a policy, but the law only requires it when we do remote meetings.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, we can fit 36, 37 people can come in.
So that's a good question. So is it 36 including us?
Well, again, the executive order exempts meetings of the governing body. So I just used the number for the benefit of the capacity of the room to get an idea of it. And as many know, it's not usual for us to have a large crowd unless there are certain discussions or activities taking place. As council directed at the last meeting, we're looking at the meeting in May to have an earlier session, to have something outside to recognize the police officers. That would be an example where we would have a packed room. So if something like that were to come up, we could operate accordingly.
Okay.
Okay.
Works for me.
Man, I'm excited to get back.
That's good.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so there are no reports or notices. Next item on our agenda is council reports and announcements. Councilwoman Florence Lynch.
I do not have much. I just have our Economic Development Advisory Committee meeting is tomorrow night at 7:30. And I don't really have anything else to report. I just wanted to thank everyone in the town and the council who have reached out over my dad's passing. And I appreciate all the kind words. That's it. Thank you.
Councilman Hurd?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to offer my condolences to Councilwoman Melissa Florence Lynch, you and your family. I'm sorry to hear that. I know it's hard. The only other thing I have is I'd like to congratulate Joseph White for the Eagle Court of Honor, Pack 144 Eagle Scout. Just to give you an idea, since 1962, these are all the Eagle Scouts that have come from the township of Pequannock, Pack 144. That's really impressive. So I'd like to congratulate everybody in Troop 144, everybody that's donated their time and really helped these kids, you know, grow up and do something amazing. And to Joseph, congratulations on attaining Eagle Scout. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilman Cole?
Okay, TBSA met on March 10th, and believe it or not, I was put in as the chair of the Insurance and Legislative Review for the TBSA. It was a little bit of a surprise for me. I was like, oh, what am I getting myself into? But they said that they would help me get through that. So on 3/11, Company 2 met, and congratulations to Rich Gerardin and Ralph Hook for 50 years of service volunteering at Company 2. So congratulations, and definitely thank you for all of your years of service for those two gentlemen. Greatly appreciated. Just a reminder, Shred Day is March 27th. I hope I didn't steal the mayor's thunder. That's Saturday at PV Park, March 27th. And I just, again, would like to, express my condolences to the Florence family, Melissa, on the loss of your dad. I'd also like to wish everyone a happy Passover and happy Easter, being that we will not be meeting again until after those two holidays. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I would also like to congratulate Joseph White from Troop 144. It was great to be at his ceremony. The poor kid was freezing. It was when it just happened to be that one day that was just so windy, and it was very cold. So congrats on that. Great job, Troop 144. Also, I'd like to give congratulations to Marissa and Bessart. I had the honor of marrying them last week. That was very exciting for me. She didn't cry, but I did. So, yeah, I kind of got teary. I didn't even really know them. Rain Barrel Workshop, the prep is on 4/17th, with April 25th is the Zoom workshop, and that is with the Environmental Club. The library, going forward, they're really excited. This summer, they're going to try to host some outdoor programs. They were looking at possibly doing a tent, and then I told them you really can't leave a tent up for long periods of time, especially since they back a ball field, that wind comes whipping. So they might just do something, maybe spray out an area to keep them contained. Mayor's Cleanup, October 23rd, it has been pushed back to 2021. April 5th, I believe, is that, Adam? That starts curbside brush pickup the first Monday in April. We got information today that the state of New Jersey is partnering with 68 Walmart and Sam Clubs to offer dedicated 65 and older vaccinations. Call the Walmart to schedule after the 29th. the Walmart in Riverdale is participating. And that's all I have. Thank you. Next on the agenda is public comment. If anyone wishes to address the council, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized and provide your name and address for the record.
Mayor, there are no hands raised.
There are no minutes presented for approval. Next on the agenda is a closed session discussion. Mr. Ustaik, will you please explain the procedure for holding the closed session?
Will, thank you, Mayor. This is the time in our meeting where the council meets to discuss items that are confidential or otherwise inappropriate to discuss in a public forum. Tonight, because we're meeting virtually, we'll need to have that discussion on Zoom and virtually, and we'll ask at the conclusion of this that those members of the public in attendance leave the meeting so the council can continue with their deliberations. I will say that while we do briefly reopen the meeting to adjourn, there will be no further action taken once our executive session has concluded.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve resolution R 2021-103, authorizing the Township Council to meet in executive session to discuss a property acquisition?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No action will be taken following the closed session. At this time, the public portion of the meeting is recessed for the closed session.
Bob, do you